You're looking at Tenochtitlan, the city on a lake that stunned the conquistadors. It stood at the center of the Aztec, or more accurately, the Mexica Empire, and its rise and destruction reshaped the history of the Americas. Whenever you hear the words Aztec Empire, most times you'd think of warriors, conquest, and sacrifice. Yet this empire's greatest achievement stood in the middle of a lake. By the early 16th century, Tenochtitlan had become the leading city of the Triple Alliance, a partnership between Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. Visitors arriving there found a place unlike anything they expected. Before going any further, here's the first reminder that history is rarely as settled as it sounds. The people who built this city called themselves the Mexica. The name Aztec became popular centuries later. Nothing about the civilization changed, only the way generations that came after described it. Sometimes the evidence doesn't rewrite history, it simply restores the names that history left behind. The traditional account states that Tenochtitlan was founded around 1325 on an island in Lake Texcoco, although historians point out that parts of that founding story belong to legend, leaving the exact date open to debate, even though 1325 remains the year most often used. Building a city in the middle of a lake sounds like an impossible project, yet the Mexica turned that challenge into their greatest strength by expanding the island with Chinampas, artificial islands that created more usable land, while causeways linked the city to the mainland and canals divided neighborhoods throughout the capital. A city that followed a carefully planned design was born.
I should have known something was different when the city had more canals than roads. I wonder if my compass knows we are lost.
Anyway, there were 4 major sectors spread outward from the center, each one filled with homes, workshops, and religious spaces where weavers, sculptors, potters, and other craftspeople carried out their daily work. Order shaped the city. Everything led toward the sacred precinct, the political and religious heart of Tenochtitlan, where gatherings of more than 8,000 people could be accommodated, and the towering Templo Mayor dominated the skyline through repeated rebuilding, each new version enclosing the one that came before. Inside that great temple complex, one shrine belonged to Huitzilopochtli, while another belonged to Tlaloc, and surrounding them were priests' quarters, schools that trained future priests, and even a ball court, turning the site into far more than a single temple. It was the ceremonial center of the empire. As the capital grew, its influence spread across central Mexico. This is where the city's political story became just as impressive as its architecture. Around 1427 or 1428, depending on the historical source, Tenochtitlan joined Texcoco and Tlacopan to create the Triple Alliance, which began as a partnership but gradually evolved into an empire led by Tenochtitlan. Expansion accelerated under Moctezuma I, whose reign lasted from 1440 to 1469, and growing territory brought a growing tribute network that supplied wealth to the capital instead of placing every conquered region under direct rule. Records preserved in the Codex Mendoza show what those provinces contributed, including garments, warrior costumes, feather shields, jadeite, turquoise, and even chili peppers, while tribute eventually flowed into the capital from 38 provinces across what is now Mexico. Wealth reached the city from every direction. That steady flow of tribute supported one of the largest urban centers of its age, and by 1521, Tenochtitlan may have held as many as 200,000 inhabitants, spreading across more than 13 square kilometers, roughly the size of 2,500 football fields, an extraordinary scale for a city standing on a lake. Even the European visitors struggled to put what they saw into words. In a writing to King Charles V, Hernán Cortés admitted that describing the city's size and wonders would require the labor of many accomplished writers, while Bernal Díaz del Castillo remembered his first view with a line that has survived for centuries: "It was the most beautiful thing in the world." Those descriptions carry extra weight because the men who admired the city would soon help destroy it.
If you're enjoying getting lost in history with me, subscribe. Hopefully we can find our way back. All done?
Thanks, mate. Now moving on. Everything changed in 1519, when Cortés reached the coast with 11 ships, about 600 men and 16 horses. And later that same year, in November 1519, he met Moctezuma II at the entrance to Tenochtitlan. The months that followed have remained a subject of debate because Spanish and indigenous accounts do not always agree, especially when describing Moctezuma's death, with some placing responsibility on Spanish forces while others claim he was struck by his own people. Historians continue comparing those conflicting accounts. Conflict finally erupted into open war, and June 30th, 1520 became known as La Noche Triste, or the Sad Night, when Spanish forces attempted to retreat from the city. None of that ended the fighting. Instead, Tenochtitlan endured a siege lasting 93 days, and on August 13th, 1521, the city finally fell to Cortés and his indigenous allies, bringing the Aztec or Mexica Empire to an end. Although the empire disappeared, the city itself never truly vanished. Modern-day Mexico City now occupies the former basin of Lake Texcoco, covering the place where Tenochtitlan once stood, and for centuries, much of that earlier capital remained hidden beneath streets and buildings. Unsurprisingly, the ground itself began arguing with history. In 1978, workers uncovered the Templo under modern-day Mexico City, and every excavation since has added another piece to a city many believed had been understood already. Layer by layer, archaeology has kept asking better questions, and Tenochtitlan has kept giving different answers. Visitors to the Museum of the Templo Mayor can now see more than 7,000 artifacts recovered during those excavations, while ongoing research keeps adding new pieces to the story. In 2024, the archaeological zone fully reopened after roof repairs, with an exhibition featuring repatriated artifacts. And in 2025, Mexico City marked the 700th anniversary of Tenochtitlan's traditional founding, even as historians reminded the public that parts of the founding account remain uncertain. The Aztec Empire still sparks debate, especially when discussions turn to warfare, conquest, and human sacrifice. Few subjects illustrate the difference between evidence and interpretation. Colonial writers left detailed accounts, archaeology has uncovered physical evidence, and modern researchers continue comparing both. Many researchers argue those ceremonies reflected the Mexica understanding of maintaining cosmic and civic order, rather than acts of random violence. However, the question is no longer whether these ceremonies happened, but how they were understood by the people who performed them. The evidence is still expanding, so is the debate. That wider picture deserves attention because Tenochtitlan represented far more than the stereotypes that often define it. Here stood a planned capital built on water, home to perhaps 200,000 people, the center of a powerful empire, and a city so impressive that even its conquerors struggled to describe it accurately. The empire fell in 1521. Its buildings disappeared under a new capital. Yet every excavation under modern-day Mexico City continues to reveal pieces of the civilization that once stood at the center of one of history's greatest cities.
I spent hours looking for a lost city. Turns out I was standing on it the whole time. History really has a strange sense of humor.
Sometimes a lost city is not really lost at all. It simply waits under the one that replaced it until someone, anyone, learns how to ask the ground better questions.